All right, all right, all right, all right. Got me sweating in motherfucker. All right. Anyways, today we are going to be watching what I'm going over, basically going over with Myron, um, the road to war with Iran. That's basically what the video says. So that's what we're gonna be watching today. Myron break that shit down. It's usually what he's really good at, even though he's really good at everything. He's a well-rounded individual. Like listening to Myron, he's pretty intelligent guy. Definitely send that uh respect in those regards. But other than that, I want to watch this Brett Cooper video where she's saying something about modern dating. She's probably saying some dumb shit, but she's super new. She's like one of the new white conservative women, which is like dumb in its own respect because the whole point of conservatives is we want y'all in the crib. So her doing this is like dumb. It's not dumb, but it's like contradictory to the cause. So I mean, she might be helping with the message, but her doing it isn't really helping the message. So
Brett Cooper.
we'll watch that and yeah, we'll get right into that.
The bitch shaking it, showing it. You this, you that. We laughing at them together. Oh! So stop treating these mother like they mean something.
Let's go to TikTok. Okay, now the Brett Cooper shit is like 20 minutes, so if she says like something dumb as hell, which is what I'm expecting her to do, and we won't watch the whole video because there's no point in me wasting my time on dumb bitches, because we know about that already.
So Brett Cooper decided to mention me during her broadcast. I think this is like for a day or two or whatever, covering the New York Times stuff. As you guys know, this tweet that I had.
Everybody's always mentioning this nigga.
This tweet right here went viral, 4.3 million views, right? Because I talked about this New York Times article. Okay, New York Times found that dating for women in New York City is so brutal that some dating events are charging women $100 and men $0 for attendance ratio still 3-to-1 women to men. So let's go ahead and because Brett Cooper tries to downplay the severity of this situation, so let's go ahead and react to it, and give some commentary like she does.
A certain post on X broke the entire platform yesterday, and it was this from an account called Short Squeeze. This person wrote, "Breaking. The New York Times found the dating for women in NYC is so brutal that some dating events are charging women $100 and men $0, and the attendance ratio is still 3-to-1 women to men." And that got almost 11 million views in 24 hours. An AI image or not, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see that this is very clearly AI generated.
Yo, what is up with this nigga shit?
But the Red Pill Bros immediately took this information as a win, just reveling in how much men now have all of the power in the dating market. They have control. And listen, all of that is fine.
Okay, no one is saying that men have all the power. What we're identifying is that men are slowly getting the power, and the women don't see that coming because that's what we're trying to say.
And dandy, get excited, be happy, but I just have to say, it really does feel like a certain sect of the internet just wants men and women to hate each other. They profit off of that. A healthy, fruitful society where men and women live in harmony.
See, and this is female privilege here, right? So from her perspective, she's looking at it like, oh, you're profiting off of teaching guys to hate women. No, actually, it's quite the opposite, right? If Brett Cooper actually ever listened to one of my broadcasts like the whole way, she would understand that I teach men this so that they don't hate women for what they'll never be to them, which is an idealistic lover that likes them for them, that wants to actually be around them for them. Like, because the problem is this, a lot of guys view relationships through the lens of of idealism. And the issue with that is that women are not idealistic lovers. They're opportunistic lovers. And most guys don't figure this out until they get slapped in the face with reality, with how modern women really move. And for a lot of guys, they don't know how to react to this. A lot of times they react to it via violence. So if anything, I'm teaching guys that they don't lose their mind, kill over getting cheated on. Because the problem is this. A lot of guys react to the red pill differently. Okay? A lot of guys react to the red pill with rage. And I'd rather them rage figuring this out with me giving them the information than they walk in on their girl getting some from Nigeria and then taking that on their girl right there. That's the difference. But
yeah, they don't if anybody actually pays attention to the red pill and what these guys talk about or what I talk about, it's not really about hating women. That's like really the farthest thing it is from. But when you have people who just like clips and need quick clicks, it's kind of easy to throw that shit in there. Okay, let's see.
Obviously, Brett doesn't understand this. And I keep cooking.
Got delayed. I wanted to have this for the 1-year anniversary of the show, but a bit delayed. But anyway, new space. I absolutely love it. I'm so happy to be
Trash. Women, it's garbage, but let's keep going.
recording in this new studio. So thank you guys for supporting us for the last year. I'm having so much fun. I love doing the show, and I love this new space, and I hope that you guys love it too. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to
Women, bro. Holy yap.
special
I'm trying to tell
story.
you.
Let's see how many people on X I can off today. Now, the first and most obvious reaction to this post and this article was that men do not go out anymore because the women do not look like the AI generated hotties that were in this post. Somebody said because they all look more like this. And here's another AI.
That's facts. Chicks from New York do look like that.
Yeah, definitely in
Bro,
New York.
I've been telling you.
New York
look,
is super liberal.
I've been saying this for a long time, but let me say it for all you guys because a lot of you are new here. New York City is overrated in every single way. The girls aren't hot. It's cold. It's expensive, and it's filled with stupid. Just keep it a bug with y'all, and it's filled with crime. New York City sucks.
Saying that dating in New York
And trust me, I know. Why do I know? Because I lived in Boston for many years.
Yeah, NYC is super liberal, guys. Most blue states are criminal ridden.
Guess what Boston is filled with? New Yorkers. Okay? Guess what New Yorkers also filled with? People from New England. People from the Northeast tend to be very similar, guys. Okay?
City looks more like this than the hot AI generated girls in mini dresses in that tweet. You are living in a city that elected Mamdani after all. One guy on Reddit, this was in regards to
We can agree on that one. Mamdani is a
these dating events, said, I don't go because I meet hotter women on the apps.
God, it feels good to be able to say what I want to say. Yes, Mamdani is a
Bomboka!
yes, he is. Socialist say by he doesn't back the police and a Shiite, bro. Come on.
Every single time
This
I
girl's
went to
going
these
crazy.
events, it is always filled with women who I am not attracted to. Maybe like women in the pink hats. This comment was also hilarious. The average lady looking for a date at these events.
Yes, that's true. They're in their 30s. They're annoying. They're insufferable. They're fatter. They're
Don't
not
shut
hot.
the fuck up.
And it is the journal that was pressing Sydney Sweeney on her controversial jeans ad, of course. I do want to push back a little bit on this because when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, I went to EV Magazine's End of Fashion Week party, and I just have to say, gentlemen, it was chock full of conservative-leaning hot women. Hot women.
You want to know how bitches lie? Just look at fat girls comment section and you'll know why this is a fucking lie.
They probably don't live in New York City. And they're not from New York City. Okay? But that is a minority. Also, I don't trust female opinions when they say, oh, this girl's hot. Bro, all of us have been here. And you guys know exactly what I'm about to say right now. How many times has some woman
Yeah. I really want to watch this Iran shit. Appreciate the Brett. Of course, she said some dumb female shit that we expected her to. She's a fucking female. Duh. She's a female that's conservative, but she doesn't have a family. Like, duh. She's fucking. It's kind of fucking backwards. But yeah, let's get into this fucking Iran shit. Some real shit. Fucking dumbass bitch shit. God damn it. All right.
Well, let's start with the Middle East, okay? Okay, this is the Middle East right here. Grand scheme of things, right? What you guys need to know is that this little slip of land right here, the state of Israel, okay, pretty much is the main superpower right now, or nuclear arm power in the region, okay? And the last country kind of standing in the way of this is a country called Iran, okay? Now, Iran has had issues with Israel for a very long time. And one of the main reasons why there's problems between Iran and Israel isn't just geopolitical, but also religious. Israel has been occupying and Palestinians since the 1940s, since its creation, okay, in 1948, and even before
since
then. Okay, I've talked about the dark history of it
World War
before
II.
with the Haganah, Ergun, Stern Gang, Leahy, all that. Talk about this before. We don't have to necessarily go over a history lesson over here. But what you guys need to know is that the Israelis occupy some land that is of some consequence to the Arabs and the Muslim world. This land is the Gaza Strip right here and the West Bank. Okay, so what they like to call Judea and Samaria, right? The Israelis, and obviously you go right into Syria as well, and all this other shit. But the point is that you guys need to know as far as like the West Bank up here or Gaza Strip is that there's a heavy Palestinian population. We're talking about millions upon millions of Palestinians that are being occupied by the Israelis. They have no rights. They have no voting rights. They're not Israeli citizens. They basically, essentially, are occupied, have no sovereignty, have no right of self-determination. And yeah, okay. Now, the Arab world has had a problem with this for a very long time. And the Israelis, what they've tried to do is they've tried to get around this, okay? They've tried to get around dealing with the Palestine question. What is the Palestine question? What are you going to do with the millions of Palestinians that you guys occupy, okay? Are you going to give them some citizenship? Are you going to give them are you going to have a one-state solution where you bring them in to society? Or are you going to give them a two-state solution? Well, the Israelis don't really want to do either. And the reason why the Israelis don't want to do either is because if they give them their own state, well, they're going to want some type of sovereignty. They're going to want some type of police force, military, and ability to defend themselves, etc. Israelis don't want that on their border. But they also don't want to bring them into as citizens because they will lose the majority, okay? Right now, in roughly 2 million Palestinians with like 8 to 10 million, I forget the exact number, I think like 8 or 9 million Israelis, right? And they want to maintain that majority for voting purposes so that they can name themselves the state, etc. So essentially what you see here happening is an apartheid ethno-state. That's what it is, okay? I know I sound like a liberal saying that, but it's the truth. That's what they are, okay? You literally have two groups of people. One group has no rights while the other group occupies them, and the other group doesn't allow them in because they're not Jewish. It is the definition of an apartheid, okay? As a matter of fact, when you talk about apartheid, Israel and South Africa are the two examples used every single time, all right? And it's an ethno-state. Why? Because you must be Jewish. Okay, now let me be clear about this. It's very important that you guys understand this. You don't have to be a practicer of Judaism to be
Jewish. No.
I know. What the fuck are you talking about, Myron? Yes, you can be
being Jewish is like an ethnicity. So, I know a lot of people like to say, well, they're still white, but unfortunately, they don't consider themselves white. So we can't really like force them into that category because they don't really consider themselves that. They consider themselves Jewish, and that's how they operate is in their Jewish sectors. So it's not like they go against their own. They really don't.
By ethnicity. It is an ethno religion. Okay. So in other words, you can be an atheist. You can be a Muslim. You can be a Christian. You can be a Hindu. Okay. You can be a Jew that actually practices Judaism. But the important thing to understand is that it is a by ethnicity. Religion doesn't matter. Okay, cool. Do we understand the breakdown of it? Give me ones if we got that so we can move forward. Because this is extremely important and pertinent to what's going to come from this. Awesome. Now, let's get into, there's Muslims. There are Muslims. Now, let's get into the Palestine question, like I mentioned before. So for years, the Israelis have been trying to avoid the Palestine question, whether it's a two-state solution or a one-state solution. There's been many different accords where they've tried to work towards it. The closest they ever came was Oslo Accords, but that's a whole other conversation between Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin. They ended up killing Yitzhak Rabin. They ended up killing Yasser Arafat. That's a whole other conversation if you guys want more details on that. I literally did a debate with Destiny about this topic, okay? If you guys want details of all the different accords. But for the purpose of this conversation, let's talk about the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords, guys, were accords that were created, signed on September 15, 2020 in D.C. And basically, it was Muslim countries, Muslim Arab countries, accepting and recognizing as a sovereign state. Now, for many decades, guys, the Arab world refused to acknowledge Israel's existence, refused to acknowledge Israel's sovereignty, because they were occupying Muslims, Palestinians, Arabs. So they said, as a joint unity, we are not going to recognize it until they give the Palestinians their own state or bring them into it. Well, we know why they won't do either. So what the Israelis have been trying to do is they've tried to use the United States as almost a middle ground to facilitate diplomacy with the Arab world that simply doesn't want them there. And the United States has been able to be fairly successful. They've done it through lifting sanctions. They've done it through giving them aid. They've done it through giving them support, etc. So the Abraham Accords, right, have included a couple of different countries now at this point. Bahrain, obviously Israel's a part of it. The UAE, Morocco's in, and so is Sudan, right? And also, interesting for you guys to know, the Egyptians are also have an agreement, honorable mention here. The Egyptians have an agreement with them under the Camp David Accords, okay? These accords right here. And this is an important mention because Egypt was like one of the first Muslim and Arab countries to accept. You can see here we got the terrorists Menachem Begin, Jimmy Carter, and Anwar Sadat. This was a very controversial. Agreement. This was back in 1978, a long time ago. But there's a reason why we pay Egypt so much money. Egypt is I think the third highest recipient of foreign aid or the second after. So that's why. Anyway, carrying on. It's important that you guys are.
I feel like if you actually pay attention, you should know all this stuff already. You should know October 7th. You should know about the Hanover Directive. There was policy in the fall of. Let me read these fucking. We already know about the Abraham Accords. We know about Israel's policy. We know about Israel's destruction of Gaza after October 7th. Know about Israel's sneak attack on Iran's air defense, which is why they was able to bomb them. Iran response, we know about that. Sanctions on Iran and Russia. Effectiveness questioned. Yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked whether his sanctions on Iran and Russia had been successful, and his answer was pretty shocking.
What do you want to say about sanctions, something else you've been working on, of course? What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? Do sanctions actually work? And the same question with regard.
A lot of the times sanctions don't work, which is why Iran's still been able to, get done, and the Russians have been thriving. And here's the thing. That's why we invaded Venezuela, because the sanctions clearly weren't working like that, because they were going to go on to BRICS. That's why BRICS was created, because of these sanctions. We are going into a multipolar world.
To 500% secondary sanctions or tariffs on countries who purchase energy products from Russia.
Okay, so two things there. There are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked, because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired. And
he's basically admitting that they crashed the Iranian currency. So what ended up happening when they crashed the Iranian currency, shopkeepers closed up shop and went out to protest. With these protests, guess what happened? Embedded Mossad and CIA operatives started getting involved in the protests and agitating. Under the cover of a real protest, they started getting violent, setting mosques on fire. That was a big red flag that they were Mossad operatives, right? Don't give a fuck about mosques. Even an Iranian that was pissed off at the regime is not going to burn a mosque ever, okay? They started shooting. They started police officers. They started killing ambulance workers, emergency service workers. And basically, they created an enormous amount of civil unrest all across Iran, okay? Now, the United States, right, tried to, agitate it. Oh, yeah, help's on the way. Donald Trump wrote the Truth Social post, right? Mike Pompeo said Mossad agents walk with you. The Shah's son, Pahlavi, was telling Iranians to rise up and take their country back. It all failed. And I'll tell you why it failed. the Chinese got involved. So while all the protests were happening, the United States and other Western powers, including, tried to smuggle in a bunch of Starlink satellite things, right? And this was
Elon
reported,
Musk.
I think, by the New York Times.
Elon Musk.
Through a hearing of a House Oversight Committee in U.S. Congress today that an organization called the National Endowment for Democracy, which is funded by the U.S. government, which exists to promote regime change around the world by sponsoring the so-called civil society groups, media, activists, training, journalists, funding political parties, has now identified Iran as its top target, and its president today was asked about an apparently secret State Department program by the ranking Democratic chair of this House Oversight Committee to smuggle Starlink into Iran, and he declared that the National Endowment for Democracy had already deployed 200 Starlink terminals into Iran.
We've been investing in communication tools over years that allow for information to be sent into Iran.
Because when the protests were happening, so you need to understand why this was important. So while these protests were happening, chat, the Iranian government, knowing that there was foreign intrusion and there were foreign assets and foreign agitators doing this, they shut down the internet. That significantly decreased the protests. So in order to combat, because the United States knew and the Israelis knew that they were more than likely going to shut down the internet, what ended up happening was they tried to smuggle in these Starlink things, which they got a lot of them in, by the way, to get
From
internet.
Elon.
But here's the thing. When they activated the Starlink, the Iranians, with the help of the Chinese, shut that shit down, bro. So they did the shut it down on the...
Nah, that's
And
crazy.
this is critical for Iran to be able to regain control of their country. So
Right.
they shut the internet down. Now, the Western media tried to spin it like, oh, they shut the internet down because they don't want people to see all the people dying. Sure, I'm sure that's a part of the reason why, right? But the real reason they shut the internet down, the biggest reason, right, besides, doing stuff off camera, I'm not sitting here trying to defend the regime, but we have to be very
That
objective
stops
and honest
the
here.
propaganda.
The real reason they shut it down is because Mossad, CIA, and other foreign operatives were in country antagonizing protests and coordinating via the internet. And then, when they could not get on the internet, Starlink was activated with many of these operatives, smuggled in illegally, because Starlink is illegal in Iran, by the way, completely illegal. So smuggled in, and then the Chinese stepped in and shut it down.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay,
And
so
CNN
China's actually
and I think
helping.
the Russians assisted as well. And now we got confirmation.
Because that's why everybody was worried, because it was like Venezuela, whereas Venezuela's a little bit farther from China than Iran is, and so I understand why they couldn't have helped them there, because China does a lot of imports with oil from had a lot of imports with oil from Venezuela, so everybody was questioning, would China help Iran? But they're a lot closer, so I definitely would expect them to help them.
That the U.S. was involved in the Starlink. So now we know effectively that 100%, I mean, we already knew it because Mike Pompeo, Israeli media, all of them admitted that they were trying to fuck up Iran during these protests, but they failed. They failed. The government was able to take control. They neutralized the majority of the people. And then Trump tried to use that as an on-ramp to justify a war, and he started mobilizing assets towards Iran, right? So while all this was happening, right, the Chinese have stepped up big time. Okay, let's talk about the Chinese. So number one, China and Russia and the Iranians started doing maritime belt security drills in February, okay? So assets were in the area, in the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is right here. This is a critical path or waterway that facilitates somewhere between 20 to 30% of the world's oil, okay? So in the grand
Dark,
scheme of
I
things,
see you
here
with
it
the
is
follow. Appreciate
between
you.
the UAE and Iran, okay? Now, during these drills, the Iranians successfully shut down the Strait of Hormuz for a couple of hours. And in those hours, we saw the price of oil go from like $50 a barrel to like into the 60s and 70s. So just for a few hours, the price spiked up in the middle of conflict, right? In the middle of potential tensions and conflict. So the Iranians were demonstrated basically that they could shut down the Strait anytime they want. And they had the Russians and the Chinese there helping them, right? Doing these drills. Also, there's a Chinese spy ship there collecting information. On top of that, the Chinese sold the Iranians very sophisticated radar. The YLC-8.
What's crazy too is I think we just shot down an Iranian drone today or the other day.
Alongside the HQ-9. I'll keep it simple for you guys. These two items are designed to counter American stealth fighter jets like the F-35, the B-2 bomber, and the F-22 Raptor. So in order for this to make sense, I must explain to you how the United States conducts warfare, okay? Especially abroad. The United States, as well as relies heavily upon air superiority, okay? And they have this air superiority by having aircraft that are very difficult to detect with radar. Now, when it comes to air warfare, chat, what you need to know to keep things simple is that who sees who first typically wins, okay? Now, when it comes to stealth aircraft, the goal is to get within striking range without being detected, shooting off missiles or dropping bombs that quickly strike the target and then get the fuck out of there, okay? They do this by using F-22 Raptors to get in and destroy any air defense, right? Target air defense, destroy them, surface air missiles. Then, once that's done, the workhorses, the F-35s come in, and the B-2 bombers. And they start blowing the place up. Because once you get rid of the air defense, which is what the Raptors do, the F-22 Raptors, which to this day, we do not sell those Raptors to anyone else. No other country has them. They're the most classified fighter jets we have alongside the B-2 bombers, right? Once you destroy the surface air missiles, the air defense, then you can destroy the country. The United States has enjoyed air superiority for a very long time. But countries like Russia, countries like China have been slowly...
Because then you can get the reinforcements and especially if you have air support, the bombs, like... It don't matter if you if we can bomb the shit out of you. It don't matter where they're hiding. If you don't really need boots on the ground, we just bomb you.
Catching up. This is why earlier I told you guys, remember that fighter jet pilot that got arrested? The FBI has been viciously going after people that sell secrets to the Chinese and the Russians, because in an information war, in a military technology war, right, selling secrets to your adversaries can be very costly in the battlefield. So why am I saying this? Why is this so important? Because the United States, right? I mean, we have a superior military in general, but one of the cornerstones of our military is our Air Force. And that Air Force, its power is derived from our F-22 Raptors, our F-35s, and the B-2 bombers, okay? Those are like the three main components of our Air Force, okay? Even our F-35s that we sell to other countries, they don't have the same level of sophistication and the full power of American F-35s. The Israelis come the closest, but ours still have certain things that they don't have. F-22 Raptors, for the first time, have landed on foreign soil. They're in right now as we speak. While of India. Thank you, come again. Modi's was over there. Thank you, come again. And obviously this is an enormous show of force to try to get the Iranians scared. But, the YLC 8B and the HQ-9, okay, surface air missile, these were created by China to combat American stealth technology. Now, I know what some of you dumb in the chat are going to say. Chinese technology sucks. It's all, paper tiger, not that good. It's all stolen, blah, blah, blah.
What I heard, though, but we already addressed this, was that Russia's shit wasn't working. But now that they got China's and Russia and their own, it's kind of like 3 in 1. So they it's going to be a little bit harder to attack, basically.
Fine. That's not what matters, chat. That doesn't matter. This is what matters. If you had 100% certainty before that you had air superiority and they couldn't touch you, it allows you to behave in a very maverick, cavalier fashion with a level of recklessness that doesn't matter, because you can do what you want. You have air superiority. But if your opponent now has tools that challenge your air superiority, what are you going to do? Well, if you're a military planner, you have to account for that. And not only do you have to account for that, you have to account for that because now you have fighter jets that are sensitive that you don't want getting shot down, because that would be a nightmare. Guys, this goes beyond a pilot dying. If the fighter jet is shot down, it would be a nightmare if the fighter pilot was caught. But let's assume he doesn't get caught, he escapes. He ejects and he escapes. Fine. That fighter jet being captured, or that fighter jet being shot down, it can be reverse engineered by the Chinese, the Iranians, and the Russians, and our adversaries. Stealth technology that no one else has, now they have. You know what else that's going to do? America enjoys being not just the military superpower, but we also enjoy selling our weapons all across the world. It's one of the few things that we still control. The F-35 is the cornerstone of Lockheed Martin, and it is the cornerstone of our Air Force. If the Chinese were to shoot that down, what do you think would happen? Our hegemon in the military-industrial complex would dissipate quickly. Now they're going to look at JC-20s, maybe Su-37s or 35s, whatever the fuck. Now, Russian and Chinese fighter jets become a lot more attractive. And that's what the Chinese want. They want to take the market share. They want to have the superior weaponry, right? So as a military game planner, this isn't Iran in June 2025, who had no air defense. Now you're dealing with an Iran that has sophisticated Chinese technology that is capable of detecting your fighter jets that were before undetectable. That changes the metrics of warfare. And not only does it change the metrics of warfare, you also don't want your jet getting shot down. Do you see where I'm going with this, chat? It's not about winning and destroying Iran. It's about, okay, now we have to account for our enemy has surface air missiles they didn't have before. They have radars that they didn't have before. What's the risk assessment? Well, before we had 100% certainty of success. Now we're down to 80%, 70%. Well, that changes the way you're going to engage, obviously. Can you be as cavalier when you know that you have a 30% chance of being shot down? No. So that means that you have to mobilize different types of assets. You have to go different. You got to fly lower to the ground. You can't be as aggressive. You can't bomb them as hard as you want to. You have to shoot your missiles from further out. All of these different things come into play, okay? And this, my friends, is what has the United States, Trump, his war planners, nervous at the Pentagon. This is not the Iran that they bombed with impunity in June of 2025. Now, let's talk about some other toys that the Iranians got. They also have some jets coming in from the Russians. These jets right here, actually, let's stick with the Chinese first, and then we're going to get into Russian technology. So they got these advanced radars and these advanced surface air missiles. Also,
they definitely got some jets from the Russians, but they're delayed because Russian has Jewish influence inside of it too, so they're trying not to look like they're just not. Because, like I said, they have people who support, they have Zionists who support Israel as well in Russia. So they're trying not to look like they aren't just flat out supporting Iran. But Russia's definitely helping Iran.
They basically have closed the deal to buy supersonic anti-ship missiles from China, okay? This missile is known as the, CM-302, okay? This is a problem, chat, because this missile, again, like I told you guys before, when it comes to Chinese and Russian weapons and technology, it's always meant to counter American technology, okay? The radars that our aircraft carriers use, okay? To make this very simple, because it's very complex. I was studying this extensively the other day, but I'm just going to make it simple for you guys. This missile is too fast for the current radar system and defense that our aircraft carriers employ, okay? Keep it nice and simple for y'all niggas.
Appreciate you.
This missile that the Iranians are probably going to have here, if they don't already, is an aircraft carrier's worst nightmare. In other words, this missile is so fast that the aircraft carrier's ability to shoot it down, there's almost no margin for error. So what that means is that it flies low to the ground, low to the sea, right? So conventional radars have a hard time finding it. When it's about to strike, it changes speed, it can maneuver, and it also has other deceptive practices that make it very hard to read on a radar. Obviously, there's more to it than that, I'm sure. It's classified. They're not going to tell you everything that it can do. But the point is that our aircraft carriers can't really stop this thing, all right? Our aircraft carriers can't really stop this thing. The technology that our aircraft carriers use and our destroyers and our Navy in general, okay, are not equipped to stop these things. Now, with that said, can they stop maybe one of them, two of them? Sure, but not a volley of them, okay? After 24 projectiles are shot, just so you guys know, with these aircraft carriers, if 24 different projectiles are shot at the aircraft carrier, you've effectively disrupted their ability to shoot everything down. You've overloaded the system, and that's what the Iranians do. Guys, the Iranians have somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 missiles, and they got thousands of drones, okay? Here's a nightmare scenario for you.
And for 12 days, they were just launching them at Israel, and they weren't done. For 12 days. That was for 12 days. Missiles at Israel for 12 days, and they weren't done.
Aircraft carriers close. They have these missiles right here, these CM-302s on the shoreline, right? The closer to the shoreline and the closer to the sea it is, the less time the aircraft carrier or naval assets have time to intercept it because it's moving so fast. And we're talking about something like this. Literally, we're talking about seconds. Seconds make a difference, okay? That's how fast these things go. There's like no margin for error. So they can launch hundreds of drones at the aircraft carrier, at the Armada. The Armada's preoccupied with shooting these drones down, which are cheap, by the way, cost nothing, right? $20,000 a pop, and Iran domestically manufactures them, as with many of the other weapons, right? And then they decide to shoot one of these things as well. Oh, boy. Or they shoot two of them, or three of them. We're cooked. Do you get it, chat?
It's a lot of ships. That's a lot of ships.
$10 billion aircraft carrier with 4,000 to 5,000 sailors on board. Gone. Finito. The worst part, those drones and this missile cost way less than that aircraft carrier, bro.
Yeah, that's the only problem is they're manufacturing some cheap shit that's really effective. That's another problem.
So, yeah, not good at all. So a deal for the Chinese-made CM-302 missiles near completion, though no delivery day has been agreed. The people said the supersonic missiles have a range of 290 kilometers and are designed to evade shipborne defenses by flying low and fast. Their deployment would significantly enhance Iran's strike capabilities and pose a threat to U.S. naval forces in the region, two weapon experts said. It's bad. I've heard Israeli intelligence operatives even say, yeah, this is not good. This is significant enhancement for the Ayatollah, right? Also, since we're talking about the aircraft carriers, the Ford, the most advanced aircraft carrier that we have, has really bad toilet issues. Now, I know what you guys are saying. What the is a shitty situation? I'm not kidding around, chat.
Thank you. Come again.
We're not talking about India. We're talking about legitimately a shitty situation. Basically, since they've been out at sea, they were supposed to have an 8-month deployment, right? Now they're closing in on a year. As you guys know, they went down to the Caribbean to create an enormous amount of pressure on Venezuela. They were there supporting the operation with Maduro. After the Iranians have not been capitulating, Trump wants to show more force, practices brinksmanship. He moved the aircraft carrier to the Middle East. And I think they were in Greece a couple of days ago. Now I think they're within range. Here's the problem, though. You got a bunch of sailors that are pissed off, that want to resign, that are writing to journalists complaining. They're waiting an hour to use the bathroom. The toilets are completely clogged. Huge sewage problems, okay? The deployment was supposed to be only 8 months. And they've done studies on this. A deployment over 8 months on an aircraft carrier starts to really have negative ramifications. Sailor morale is down. They're pissed off. They want to resign. They're writing to journalists. They're complaining. They're missing birthdays. They're missing funerals. They're missing, births of their children. You don't want a bunch of angry sailors on an aircraft carrier going to war against a country that literally said, we will sink your aircraft carriers. And now they have the missiles to do it, bro. Like, what? Now they can they could have done it before, by the way. They got the Fata 1, the Fata 2. They could have done it before. Now they can really do it with this deal they just closed with the Chinese-made CM-302s. Now, add some right on Twitter today. Try to tell me, well, the Chinese and the Russians aren't going to do anything because they didn't do anything with Maduro. Well, let me go ahead and address this real quick. Number one, Venezuela is too close to the United States.
That's what I was just telling you. Everybody thought China wasn't going to help them.
Right? That's number one. They're in our hemisphere. China's not as close. It is what it is. Right? Number two, the Venezuelan military, for lack of a better term, are right? They didn't upkeep their military properly. They had the same Chinese radars, but they're lazy. They didn't know how to work it. Maduro's over here giving farmers AK-47s. He's a okay? Military's a joke. Country's a joke. They've had crippling sanctions for a long time. They have not been able to, they don't have the same, they're not as war tested as the Iranians are, okay? That's number one. The Venezuelan military versus the IRGC, not even close, bro, okay? I mean, to give you guys an example, the Venezuelans are so stupid that they were using TeamViewer. Their military was using TeamViewer. Using Windows. The Iranians, after the 12-day war, moved all their infrastructure to Chinese technology. Okay? After the 12-day war, they learned so much about their weaknesses, it's insane. New radars, new surface air missiles, fighter jets from the Russians. They've acquired the CM-302. They ramped up their missile production, the Fata 1 and the Fata 2. They started revving up production of those. They have hundreds of them now, each. Real hypersonic missiles. The Iranians are smart. The Venezuelans are dumb, if we're going to be honest. Is too busy, I don't know, and
they was dancing and shit.
And next thing you know, Trump came in there and said, "Give me that shit."
They was Maracha. What's that? What's the shit on American? Horchata. Horchata. Them niggas was dancing. They wasn't worried about no shit.
So that's number one.
Horchata.
Fell, and the Chinese were counting on them for cheap oil, and they now don't have access to that anymore. Guess who's next in line? The Iranians. So obviously, the Chinese are going to put way more care to the Iranians because with the Iranians, they're still getting cheap oil from them. Not only that, the Iranians are actually close to China. Let's look at it on a map, okay? Geographically. Here's China, right? Iran's over here. Now, compared to Venezuela, all the way over here now, okay?
That's what I was saying. That's literally what I was just saying. Everybody was like, I don't know if China's really going to help Iran because they didn't help Venezuela. But I'm like, Venezuela is a little bit farther away than Iran. And they would have to they couldn't come through here. They would have to literally go through they would have to go around the whole fucking South America. Because niggas, we wasn't going to let them go through here, through the Panama Canal. Are you crazy? Would not be able to fit the whole fleet through there. So they would have to go around the whole South America to get there with their naval. Their Air Force wouldn't have been able to do shit. Yeah, it just would have been. They would have been spending a lot of money. They would have lost all the money that they invested in Venezuela, spending it trying to help them. Juan, I see you with the follow. I appreciate you, brother. They would have lost all the money that they was already invested in Venezuela, helping them, which is why they didn't. So, but Iran is basically the same amount of space from Venezuela to America, if that makes sense, to China. Iran is close to China like Venezuela is to America. So China is actually going to help. I know China's going to help Iran, because another thing about Iran is I want to say China is 90% of Iran's like oil export, and China gets 14% of Iran's oil, or 13% of Iran's oil, something to that nature. So China has a lot of interest in Iran. 13% of oil is a lot of fucking oil.
Are we serious? Like, this is just like, bro, this is like a 3-hour flight from Miami, bro. Okay? Meanwhile, Iran is still somewhat close to China.
They're about the same. China and Iran are the same from Venezuela to America.
All right? Now, with that said, another thing that's extremely important that you guys need to know, and one of the main reasons China's interested in protecting Iran, this little area right here.
The Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz, which the shortest point is 20 miles from coast to coast, just so you know. 20% of the world's oil goes through here, but you guys know how much of China's oil goes through here? Over half, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check, because I like to fact check this shit. How much of China's oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz? Boom. I was right. Almost 50%, almost half. Okay? So 20 to 30% of the world's oil goes through here. Okay? 20, 30% of the oil goes through here. Now,
Let me see who China gets most of their oil from, or a lot of their oil from. See? What the fuck? Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. I was about to say, my fault. I got a little fucking pissed. The oil that China gets from Iran is my fault, guys. Let me explain. See, it doesn't say that because China's technically not supposed to be buying oil from Iran, because Iran is sanctioned to fucking hell. So they technically, which is why I love that it said Malaysia. I'm so glad it said Malaysia. It says Malaysia because that's where Iran usually, like, that's their middleman, basically. So they get it from, China will buy it from Malaysia, which is Iran, which is basically Iran. So yeah. Oh, look at that. I didn't even read none of this shit, and look at this. It said that. Yeah. Google, it's pretty easy, guys. But yeah, Malaysia's like the fake, helps China get the oil from Iran without it being sanctioned to hell.
Now, as far as Iran sells China, I think, roughly 10% of their oil. Let me double check.
13%.
Right?
13%.
Okay. So 13 to 15% of their oil comes through from Iran.
I'm trying to tell you guys. Anya knows what the fuck he's talking about.
Iran, and then 40 to 45% of China's total crude comes through from the Strait of Hormuz. All right? So I think, and then someone said, Iran's not going to do because we're going to nuke them. Dude, you're just a bro. Holy you. This name is Carlos V212. You're dumb, bro. Holy Bro, just put the tacos in the bag and shut the fuck up, man. Holy man. Bro, just put the tacos in the bag and shut the fuck up, fam. Okay? Flour, not corn. Dumb. Do you not understand that nuclear warfare is the last thing we want to do, you dumb? Did you forget about Hiroshima and Nagasaki? You dumb. Do you understand that if we get to nuclear warfare, the economy's cooked, Nick? Which means you're going to get sent back? Holy shit. Anyway, hey, we'll nuke Anyway, back to what I was saying. So mathematically, right, for the Chinese, this strait controls almost half of their oil, and almost 15% of their oil comes from the Iranians. And it's probably going to increase, as you guys know, because remember, Venezuela just got taken down, so their oil needs from Iran are only going to go up. Also, keep in mind that they don't want the Israelis to take over Iran. Why? Because the Israelis are an extension of who? The United States.
Yeah. So that is a good reason why Trump did not say anything about the war during the State of the Union. So we're not going to finish this. Actually, we're going to watch this goofy ass, see what he got today. This nigga's hilarious. So definitely some entertainment. But yeah, basically, guys, what it all comes down to is that China has a lot of stake in Iran. And when I mean stake, I'm talking about oil. And that's their energy that they get from Iran. That's most of their energy that they get from Iran. So losing Iran would be a very big hurt for China's economy. It would be good for us to fuck it, but it'd be hurtful for China. So China might fight tooth and nail helping Iran. Okay? So it's going to be, that's why you don't see Trump so rah-rah about the war, because it's going to be really touchy with how many players is in it. It's not just Iran and Israel anymore. So, well, it's never been Iran, just Iran and us, like Myron said, us taking Venezuela made it Iran and Israel. So, yeah. It's not just Iran and Israel no more. It's a lot more players. So, it's going to be don't expect nothing too drastic. Don't expect nothing too crazy. Don't expect anything too quickly either, because like I said, China is definitely going to be very interested in finding a way to keep Iran its own nation, sovereign, away from America. So yeah, let's see what Nick has to say about the Zios taking over Warner Brothers.
The same day as the situation in Iran is unfolding, we get the news that finally, in the drama over who will acquire Warner Brothers, the major media conglomerate,
it was either Netflix or Paramount.
We have learned that in the end, the long shot bid placed by David Ellison's media company, Skydance Paramount, has now been accepted. And the Larry Ellison family will now acquire, in addition to TikTok, Skydance, Paramount, they will now also have Warner Brothers, that other media conglomerate. And they will form a super media conglomerate under the influence of two pro-Israel Jewish Zionists. And this is a story, this is from the Wall Street Journal. It says, quote, Paramount Skydance emerged victorious in the bidding war for Warner Brothers after Netflix said it wouldn't match the David Ellison-led company's latest offer for the iconic Hollywood property. Netflix pulled the plug on its deal soon after the Warner board of directors said it determined Paramount's $31 per share offer for the entire company was superior to Netflix's bid for Warner's movie and television studios and HBO Max streaming service. Pending regulatory approval, Paramount will own not only Warner Brothers and HBO, but also popular cable networks including CNN, TNT, TBS, and Food Network. The development marks a stunning come-from-behind win for Paramount. Jews win again. A major upset. The Jews have won again. Whoa, and no one could predict this. That's why we play the game, right? It's a stunning. I'm shocked. You mean to tell me Larry Ellison got his way? Stunned, shocked, amazing. It's a stunning come-from-behind victory for Paramount and the Ellison family, whose overtures had previously been rebuffed at every turn by Warner Brothers. After multiple unsolicited bids from Paramount last year, Warner opened a sale process that ended with Netflix as the winning suitor. When Ellison Skydance Media acquired control of Paramount last August, going after Warner became his top priority. Paramount was seen as too small to compete against Disney, Netflix, and Amazon. At that time, Netflix was facing an uphill battle with the Justice Department, which was reviewing the deal.
But
So for those that don't know, Larry Ellison is a Jewish billionaire, one of the richest men in the world. I don't know where he stands currently, but he's one of the top 10 richest men in the world. He's got a couple $100 billion net worth. It comes from his software company, tech company, Oracle, which he owns and which he is the chairman and CEO of the company. And he is also a close personal friend of Benjamin Netanyahu. Very close.
what a
friends.
coinky dink.
So close that Netanyahu brought his family to Ellison's private island to vacation. And Netanyahu called up Larry Ellison to get him out of a political jam in Israel. Go figure, the prime minister of Israel is under investigation by his own government. Who does he call to bail him out? An American Jewish billionaire, Larry Ellison. And said, hey, Netanyahu said, I need the Jewish lawyer that Arnon Milchan is hiring. Can you talk him out of letting that lawyer go so I can hire him? And Larry Ellison said, say no more, and made it happen. This is the relationship. Larry Ellison has given millions of dollars to the IDF. He even offered Netanyahu a spot on Oracle's board. So an American software giant that owns all your data, Netanyahu would be on the board of that company. At least Netanyahu turned it down, so it was offered to him. That's Larry Ellison. Last year, his son, David, who has his own media company called Skydance, they started
own
a
TikTok.
quest to create one of the biggest media conglomerates in the world. So Larry's son, David, has this Skydance company. He acquired Paramount, and that purchase was underwritten by his father, Larry. So they formed this conglomerate, Skydance Paramount. And with that, they got CBS, CBS News, the Paramount Studio, Paramount Plus, the streaming service, among other things. So now they're cooking. Now they got a little media conglomerate. This deal was finalized in August. You might remember, when they gained control of CBS News, they bought out Barry Weiss from the Free Press for $150 million, and then they made her the editor-in-chief of CBS News, where they started to change their coverage of the Israel-Gaza war and of the Middle East in general. Barry Weiss also brought on a new news anchor, Tony Dokapil, who is a pro-Israel Jew, who was involved in a controversy with Ta-Nehisi Coates in 2024. That was the move that happened last year in 2025. Then they launched a bid to acquire Warner Brothers. They wanted their media conglomerate to be even bigger. They said, if we want to compete with Amazon, Netflix, Apple, Disney, it's not enough to just have Paramount. Paramount is peanuts. They said, we need Warner Brothers. So they submitted a huge offer to acquire Warner Brothers Studios, Discovery Channel, HBO, HBO Max, CNN, TNT, TBS, all these properties under the Warner Brothers conglomerate. Skydance Paramount made a huge offer for it. Warner Brothers, receiving the offer, then opened up the bidding process, and they started accepting bids from other companies. Netflix came in with the better deal, and the board of Warner Brothers approved the deal. This happened in December. And so since
when we
December,
thought we was gonna be on Netflix.
Netflix was going forward to acquire Warner Brothers, and Skydance Paramount was out of luck. That is until the DOJ, the Department of Justice, under Pam Bondi, began to scrutinize this acquisition. And they started to say, maybe Netflix is engaging in anti-competitive practices. And maybe Netflix is going to be too big if it has HBO Max and Warner Brothers. And so there was this idea that maybe the deal might not be approved by regulators, ultimately, that are controlled by the Trump administration. Skydance Paramount, the Ellisons, were not to be deterred. So they came back with an offer that Warner Brothers couldn't refuse. And last week, they offered a vastly superior offer, much more money.
Yeah, way more money.
And Warner Brothers is now taking the deal. They literally could not accept the deal because it's too much money. And so now you're going to have Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Skydance. This is in addition to, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, Larry Ellison's acquisition of TikTok. You might remember that back in 2024, the U.S. Congress banned TikTok from the United States unless its parent company, ByteDance, sold the American side of the business to an American company. And under Biden, in his last year in office, no such deal was able to happen. That is until Trump came into office, and Trump brokered the sale of TikTok's U.S. business to a newly created U.S. entity. He did that last year. Under the terms of that deal, Larry Ellison's company, Oracle, will receive alone TikTok's proprietary algorithm, and they will be able to modify it for U.S. TikTok users. What's more, Oracle already controls all of TikTok users' data in America, and Oracle will become one of the largest shareholders in the newly created U.S. TikTok entity. So Larry Ellison is by far and away the most important player in TikTok. He's got the algorithm, he's got the data, he's got the ownership, he's got the equity. So you've got Skydance, Paramount Studios, CBS News, Paramount Plus. Now you've also got Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers Studio, Discovery Network, HBO Max, and CNN.
All pro-Israel.
TikTok. All of that under Larry Ellison, the close personal friend of Netanyahu. It has come to pass. The Jews are once again in control of the media. Is that a hateful trope? Is that an anti-Semitic canard? It's just true. Larry Ellison and his son are Jewish. They are clearly partisans for Israel, friends with Israel's head of state, and they have accumulated in the span of a year one of the largest media conglomerates in the world, and they've already made editorial changes to make it more pro-Israel. Literally, what do you call that other than Jewish media? That's what it is.
Yep.
And consider the following. Think about what has happened under this Trump administration. Just take a survey. In addition to these developments, you might remember last year, after the war broke out in Gaza, there were all these protests against Israel on the college campuses at UCLA, at Columbia, at University of Pennsylvania, and the Jews were really unhappy about it. And they started talking about suing these universities under the civil rights law. And they talked about how these universities are anti-Semitic and they try to get the faculty fired. When Trump got elected, he used the Department of Education to withhold hundreds of millions of dollars from all the Ivy Leagues, forced them to come to the table and negotiate. Otherwise, they would go bankrupt, and forced universities like Harvard and Princeton and Yale to accept onerous restrictions on what they can teach in their Middle East Studies department about Israel and which groups supporting Palestine are allowed on campus and what kinds of things can be said during a protest, like from the river to the sea, and so on. So you think about like a sampling of things that have happened under Trump since October 7th in 23 and Trump getting in office in 25, the Jews have recaptured the Ivy Leagues. Where there was an insurrection against Israel, it has been put down using the force of the Department of Education. Where there was a revolt in the media which is controlled by the left and maybe arguably criticizing Israel in some ways, on TikTok, where pro-Palestine content was more viral than pro-Israel content, now that insurrection has been put down.
That's the real reason why they was trying to get TikTok down, guys. It's because it was pro-Palestine more than it was pro-Israel. It's the real reason why they started caring about TikTok.
The algorithm is firmly under the control of Larry Ellison. The entire content creation industry has been vertically integrated under the control of the Ellison family. And in the Middle East, where the actual war is going on, once again, situation is under control. Whereas Biden was depriving Israel of 2,000-pound bombs, and he tried to deter Iran rather than bomb Iran, tried to make a deal. Now the United States is about to pursue regime change there. So think about who's up in this administration.
Then we're going to get regime change, and it's going to be a lot of immigrants. And then the Democrat is going to be like, hey, let's let them all in. Why not? We got to be nice. That's the American way. Left, right, middle, nigga, if you ain't America first, fuck you.
He captured the Ivy Leagues, the media, TikTok, and the Middle East. And in every way, shape, and form, this has been helped along by the GOP, specifically by the Trump administration, by the executive branch. They have used the full force of the federal government, its education money, its DOJ civil rights enforcement, using its military, using its regulatory enforcement, using all of these things to further the institutional capture of Jewish Zionists over America. There's even other examples I mentioned earlier. Ronald Lauder, the head of the World Jewish Congress, his son is now the nominee to chair the Federal Reserve. At the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab has stepped down. He's been replaced by Larry Fink, the Jewish head of BlackRock. Everywhere you look, there it is. And you think about on the flip side, we are out here complaining about no mass deportations, no border wall, no tariffs, no middle-class tax cut, all these kinds of things. And in the meantime, there is a golden age, but it's happening for the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation is they are getting everything they want and more. They are feeling pretty good. They have institutionally captured our elite institutions. They've got Harvard, they've got the cathedral, they've got the brains, they've got the military, the State Department, they've got the White House, the Federal Reserve, the World Economic Forum at Davos, they've got the Middle East. They are happy campers. Everything on their wish list, they've crossed it off in a year. And the voters, the forgotten men and women, the people of America, the white citizens of Springfield, Ohio, of Minneapolis, Minnesota, the besieged citizens of New York City, Chicago, LA, we're out of luck. Border wall hasn't happened. Mass deportations hasn't happened. National Guard deployments hasn't happened. Middle class tax cut, infrastructure bill, not happening. And Trump's biggest supporters are put in the position of making excuses. Well, you got to be reasonable.
You can't do everything.
Reasonable. You can't build a wall in a day. You can't deport 1 million people in a year. You can't. Selling us.
Selling the game.
Selling us the short end of the stick here that we're always pulling. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, guys, and what's worse is it's in our face. No longer are we dumb. Let me not say no longer are we dumb, because there's still a lot of you dumbass niggas out there. But no longer are you allowed to be dumb, okay? It's in your face. They're doing it in your face. You see, he just bought Warner Bros. They're doing it in our face. It's not like it's hidden anymore where we can't see this shit. We know Larry Ellison just bought Warner Brothers. We know he owns ByteDance. We know they bought TikTok. We know they own Paramount. Like, if you still think that it's a left and right issue, I'm trying to tell you guys, it's just them boys. And until we get them boys out of government and out of economy, we might have to really get them out of our economy too, and just reset. Until we do that, I don't know if we're ever gonna have any if we're ever gonna be able to fix anything, because they're just gonna keep doing what they want to do because they run everything. They have the power to tell who what to do. So until we figure that out, guys, I don't think anything's ever gonna get better. So we gotta figure out how we're gonna get them out of government before anything, because can't have people like fucking Mike Huckabee and fucking as our U.S. ambassador. Imagine. But anyways, yeah. It was a chill Friday today. We did a nice little Iran